join me in saluting the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first appointment this evening is Gail and Barry Phillips, RE building permit for Farm Road. You can come right up here.
Sounds like you already heard of those. Yes, we realize the petition, I guess.
You can use the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, we got people watching at home, so.
Yeah, I just didn't want to sit.
You have to pull it pretty close, or
It's Barry and Gail Phillips. We're looking to petition the Board of Selectmen under RSA 674, Section 41, to build on a Class 6 road. The land is 31 acres, has more than 200 feet of frontage on a Class 6 road. There's a house further down the road, the Andersons, that has the date built in '63. The date of it being built would be important. It's a bullet 4 of the RSA. Don't know if you've been to the land or not. I know Chief Briggs has been out there once or twice. The road's passable. We've lived in town for quite a while. We lived on unpaved roads, Symes Road, and Circuit Road is certainly less dangerous, let's say, to travel than a farm road. I'll have to pull up my notes and some of the rest. It being rural residential, I think that we're within limits because it's 31 acres, it's rural. There's not much development out in that area at all, and doesn't look as though there's going to be, though I don't predict the future. And residential, one house on 31 acres. One of the things is the planning board, I guess, gets involved and advises you something I saw in that article. And I'm curious as to what the real plan out there is anyway. It doesn't look as though any of the lots can be developed beyond ours to Lee Anderson property because they don't have frontage. And then the other is a discontinued road, County Road is discontinued. Magnuson, I don't know if Connie's still alive, but yeah, that's why it still isn't developed. I've talked to him over the years about that area there. He has quite a bit of frontage on Farm Road, probably all the way up to the Brentwood line. And he's told me over the years he's never wanted to develop it, etc. Maybe when John and Glenn take over it'll be different, but they could put roads to 125, I guess, but I don't see that happening either. We want to move to that area because it's rural, it's quiet, it's 31 acres. We have 300 feet on the Little River. And we don't mind the Class 6 road. When you get to the 674, Section 41, I guess it is, it gives landowners an extra avenue for use of their property. Because in '75, most towns said you can't develop on Class 6 roads. And that's been in, I guess, since '75. Many towns, especially further north now, are Middle Road and Deerfield and a lot of other places, they allow subdivisions off of Class 6 roads in towns. And I guess that's why all this came about. Anyway, the purpose is so that if a building permit is allowed, it doesn't cause excessive funds or disruption to the town. I can't see that happening in our situation because it's one house, 31 acres. You don't take care of the road. you don't for Anderson now, and you never will, I guess, that's fine. And I guess the cost to the town would be sending out the tax bill, best as I can determine. Maybe that's something we can find out from the planning board as well. There are 4 points under it, and it says that the selectmen can allow you to build on a class 6 road if you upgrade it to class 5. Cost prohibitive, it doesn't make sense, it would get more traffic, which was, you know, something that Mr. Anderson complained about. There'd be less traffic up that way, which we do too. The second point would be, you can allow it if it's shown on a town map. We have an address, a billing address for 19 Farm Road. It's been on the town maps for years as best I know. The next point would be class 6 road, you would have to sign a waiver, which Astor Day did, I believe, way back when. Rich can probably knows better what happened because he's done some work in culverts and things out there on the Farm Road. That Astor Day told me at one time, I never saw it in the deed or anything, but that they were required to maintain the road, which we'll talk about that, but, you know, so again, it's no cost to the town if we live there. The fourth point was, if the street existed prior to 2004 and the town approved a building lot there, which they did in '63 with Astor, and then it has allowed it since then, pay taxes on it forever, then it should be, again, acceptable. So 3 out of the 4 principles of the law are in our favor. And I guess that's all I really understand about it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain it.
Don or Rich, you got any?
I do.
Okay, can I go first?
Sure.
So, I just want to address 3 of your points, or 2 of them. Your first one, we've had, I believe, 2, if not 3 of these come before the board, where someone wanted to build on a class 6 road in the past 2 years, 2.5 years that I've been here. And the town's feeling on it then and still remains that it would have to be converted to a class 5 road. A legally passable one with widths and construction as such. So we have denied those requests based on that. As you pointed out yourself, it's probably very cost prohibitive for you to do that. As far as the waivers, it's not waivers, it would be a deed restriction placed on your property.
Yes.
Stating that you don't get fire service, you don't get trash service, you don't get mail service, you don't get police service. And I believe there's a bunch of other ones that the attorney had come back to us with. That would be recorded in your deed. It wouldn't be a waiver. It would be a matter of record on your deed.
Understood.
So, those are the 2 big ones there. I guess basically this board has not taken the position that we're converting class 6 roads to buildable lots. And the reason for that being is just because of all of the legal liability that the town would be taking on. If something happened out there and we didn't happen to have the right waiver or deed restriction, you could sue the town. And that has come back from council numerous times.
Isn't that the purpose of the waivers?
What's that?
Isn't that the purpose of the waivers?
Apparently not in our litigious society. And so repeatedly it has come back from council that we would be taking on enormous liability to allow building in that area or on a class 6 road with those restrictions. And we recently had a driveway that was outside of NFPA regulations, and again, they wanted to have restrictions placed on their deed. That again placed enormous liability on the town. On top of the applicant not being able to get insurance because no insurance company would insure them without fire protection for their home.
Unless they have a fire pond.
And a sprinkler system, and a cistern, and a pump, and, you know.
Yeah.
And-
Everything
and-
costs it.
So, I will pass it off to Selectman Alessio, but just from my perspective, it has just been a can of worms that just gets deeper and deeper every time we've looked at it.
Has anybody brought to court yet?
What's that?
Has anybody gone to court yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, yeah, you would know.
Again, and I'm basing that on the past 2 years, so.
Yeah, okay.
I have a couple of questions. Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah,
I'm
please.
listening anyway, so.
What's that? You gotta come up here, we can't hear you over there.
I'm coming. Okay, you had said that there's other people. Oh, sorry. Take this off. You had said that there's other people that have come to the town and asked to build that, want to build on a Class 6 road also? Okay. Have there been other houses on that road, or are these people that want to build on a Class 6 where nobody else has built a house on it before? That's one question. And the other question I have is, what is the difference between a Class 6 and a Class 5 road in Kingston? What's the difference?
The difference between Class 6 and a Class 5 road is that the town takes ownership of the maintenance of it. And I will defer to Rich if I get this wrong, but basically we take over the plowing, sanding, salting, all the pothole filling, drainage, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
But
the
the
town
sur-
accepts responsibility for the full length of the road.
But the surface of the road, what is the difference between a 6 and
There's
a
no
5?
difference.
There's no difference?
So the ones that you reference, like Circuit Drive and things
Yeah,
like that,
signs
those are
and-
ones that are, those are Class 5 roads,
Yeah.
right? So, as far as your first question, yes, they are places where there were houses in there. They had enough frontage to put, they met all the criteria that you met, but again, they were in prior to the law being passed. I believe the state it was 1975, I thought it was earlier than that, but they were put in there in the 60s, and they could not, again, convert it to a Class 5 road based on today's standards of width and, you know, drainage and all that kind of stuff, because there were abutters or other property owners that weren't willing to give up the amount of frontage necessary to do those things to the standard of the law. So like if we put a road in now, it's not like, if we went in and started working on Farm Road right now, it would be subject to last week, we just got this whole dissertation on stormwater and how it needs to be treated and everything like that. It's not as simple as just grading a road anymore. It's gotta be peaked, it's gotta get, the water has to go somewhere, it has to, you know, there's drainage, culverts, all these things that need to go in. And I believe the estimate that I heard was I'm not even gonna quote it, but it was insanely cost prohibitive for the town to do it. So the town is not adding Class 5 roads from Class 6 roads based on that.
I would like to add that Mr. and Mrs. Phillips came before the zoning board and their request for a variance was denied. And they quoted the RSA 674-41, but that's a state statute, and the town of Kingston has not adopted that. Should we adopt it, then the procedures that Mr. Phillips spoke about would be options for consideration for an exception. But the town of Kingston has not adopted RSA 674:41(1)(c). So it's really moot. It's a state statute, but not a local statute.
Kevin, you got anything?
Kevin is on the computer.
We have a selectman who's zooming in.
He's muted. Oh.
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I don't have any questions.
So is anything else we can do for you, or?
Yeah. Rich, can you tell me about what happened with, the fox with the culvert and all that on Farm Road way back when?
There was a subdivision, I think Charlie Phillips put 2 house lots in at the very end of Farm Road, the Class 5 section.
Yeah.
And that section of road had to be upgraded. And there was a culvert put in, a cross pipe from the 2 new houses towards the Phillips property.
Oh, that's right.
That was basically, it was right on the edge of the Class 5. I couldn't tell you if it was Class 5 or Class 6 exactly where the culvert is. Might have been a Class 6 sub.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Yep.
You're speaking about the last house that was built in there on the left,
Yeah, on the left. One was,
across from the Fox property.
right.
Yep, there is, I remember, yeah.
Yep. In order for Charlie Phillips to get those 2 lots,
They made him upgrade it to a Class 5.
yeah, that little piece. Seems though that's what happened. Which basically had to improve the road. Didn't have to pave it at the time, I don't believe. But it satisfied the selectmen at the time, so we could get 2 building permits there. On another front, I'll tell the board, I understand the liability and what Phil has said, and probably what you've heard from town council. The RSA that we've referred to that allows this to happen was done for a reason. It's a 35 acre lot that we're talking about, and they want to put 1 house there, and they want to be responsible for not having fire service, not having trash pickup, not having mail delivered, not having a school bus out there to pick up kids, and like you said, Phil, there's a whole litany of other things that would have to be on there. From my perspective, that if that was ever allowed, one of the other things that I would like to see on something like this is that there be a deed restriction on, you know, if you cut out 2 acres or 3 acres, whatever the zoning is for a house lot, the other remaining acreage should be in some sort of conservation easement so it can never be built on. Because I think that's an excellent way to use that land, and it would basically tie the land up forever so it can't ever be built on. What happens with these things is like what's happening on, we've got a proposal before the planning board, piece of land on a Class 6 road that sooner or later someone's gonna come in and put things together, and you're gonna end up with a bunch of houses out there that you don't really want. I'd much rather see 1 house out there with some deed restrictions. And maybe from town council liability, we can't do that, but from my perspective, looking at the cost of maintaining roads, the cost of maintaining the stormwater systems now, the cost, the liability of having another road out there, is something that needs to be weighed. There are other lots like this that are basically landlocked because they don't have a Class 5, and people own it. They'd love to have I'd love to have a house on 30 acres with no one around me. You know, I live on a little 3/4 acre lot. I'd much rather have 31 acres, but that's just my, you know, I hear what they're saying, I kind of side that way, and I've just given you my opinion. Sooner or later, that will be a Class 5 road, and that will be developed, and you'll have a whole slew of houses in there, because it's all residential. You'll have school buses in and out of there, and trash trucks in and out of there. It's gonna happen, unless you allow 1 house out there, so it's something to think about.
Thank you, Richard. That was my point, really. That land, the 31 acres, has been in current use for as, well, you know, as long as we lived in town, as long as we've owned it. It's been in current use. People hunt there, we hike up there, and, you know, you can fish on the river and all that. when I said to put in a class 5, which you say has to be done, if you do that and you develop it, that's what happens. We've had the land on the market, and anybody that says, I want to put one house there, they say no in town. And everybody else is a developer. I want to put 12 places in. We don't want to sell it to you. What are you, nuts? I guess we are. Because we're pushing rope uphill here. We're trying to save the town, like Richard said. All that development, nothing's gonna happen until Connie dies. The rest of those lots can't be built. The town owns 4 or 5 of them in the middle there. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we've spent money in town for land all over. We buy this piece and that piece and Diane Eady's piece down on the river and that to save open spaces. We're trying to do that and you kick us in the crotch. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Sorry. You should change your views.
No. So, you know, sorry, I started this. The selectmen have to follow town councils, but I really should have the conversation, not for this one, but for future lots like this, because that's what happens. That's exactly what's gonna happen off.
Look, this just happened on Marshall Road.
I know.
You know, there was a 35-acre chunk that was gonna be held, you know, and now it just got parsed out into smaller lots, or into lots that people own now. It's not gonna be conservation land. And that's unfortunate, and I agree with you, but again, we're tasked with weighing the town getting sued 5 years down the road from now, because something happens down there that wasn't covered under the restriction. I have to heed town council.
So now you have 5 people that could sue you. I don't know. Again, it doesn't make sense. And I'll be quiet now.
So if I understand you right, Ellie, that's 674-41 would need to be passed by the town first.
To even consider
To
what
even
Mr.
consider
Phillips
it.
is talking about.
So that's a warrant article to the town.
Yeah, and the states have been pushing towns to do it, so, you know, once a lawyer gets involved, you'll be doing it quicker than,
Or maybe not, I mean, if,
or maybe not, you never know.
So that would be the first part of the process, 674-41.
assuming we even wanted to do it.
Right, but I'm saying that would have to happen first, right? Is that your understanding?
Yes, correct.
Well, I mean, I just think I would like, you know, the town to work with us as best they could, you know, because I would like to move back to Kingston. We're kind of far from all our friends here, and we have friends in Kingston still, that we still come and see all the time and walk, and you know, we've owned this land, and we could have sold it to, you know, developers like Barry said. That's not what we really wanted to do. And it is true, we've tried to sell it, and every time somebody comes to the town here, they go, you can't build on it, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you know, I'm just saying.
You can build on it, but you have to put in a road.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the
the only
bottom.
ones that wanna put in a road are developers. So, that's not what we wanted. We didn't want it for Kingston. I mean, you know, we took care of our properties here, and we want to put a house there. We've been waiting 30 years to do it. We are in Maine right now, but we would come back if we could do it. And as far as, you know, we would keep up the place. We'd, you know, try and keep up that portion of the road, which really isn't that much, because our land starts right there where the pavement stops.
We have 7/10 of a mile driveway today.
Oh, yeah, where we live now, we live on a private road,
I mean, this would be nicer,
you know,
you know.
that we take care of. But like I said, you know, we wanna come back. If there's a way the town can work with us, you know, we'd love it, so.
Doesn't sound good.
But, like I said, maybe we can do it, you know? Figure out a way. Maybe. But, you know, otherwise, we'll end up having to do something else, you know, so. But I'd rather come back, so. So I don't know. Something to think about for everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, Now, times are changing too, so I mean, it's, you know, I'm
I
not
understand the
saying,
frustration, and I mean, you know, at face value, I agree with what you're saying, that it would be better to have one house there than 30, absolutely. But what people fail to realize is by doing that, the town takes on quite a bit of risk and liability in the process. So it's weighing out what is the benefit to the town at the end of the day and what is more likely to happen. And, you know, the board has been pretty consistent on the position that you're familiar with, you know, that we're going down this road.
so what would exactly have to be done for you to let it spill there, without paving it?
The town has to approve the RSA, and then we feel again.
Or that little section, you know what I mean, from where the pavement stops to where our land.
Phil, if you will, I'll speak out of the other side of my mouth this time, because what the selectmen are afraid of is what happened to the house that's beyond where you're talking. When
Yeah.
that was built, and I'm not gonna mention names, but the
Yeah,
person that built that house did put deed restrictions. There were deed restrictions on that house. If you research the deed back, they were there before the house was built. And then in the course of the house changing hands 2 or 3 times, for whatever reason, the deed restrictions somehow disappeared. So I spent 25 years dealing with, I think, the people that are still there, trying to get me to maintain that road because the deed restrictions
Yeah, he mentioned.
no
yeah,
longer exist.
that
So
was,
that's the other problem that you got.
And this isn't exclusive to Class 6 roads. Developers come to town, they start a private road that doesn't follow any of the specs, and then lo and behold, 5 years later, after the developer's gone, all the residents get together, introduce a warrant article, it becomes a town road that he can't get a plow truck down, he can't get in a circle. Suddenly, something that was a private road, suddenly now needs trash pickup. It just, how enforceable these deed restrictions are, you know, they're just not very. It seems to me, you know, and what council is telling us is that it just doesn't put the town in a safe position.
So that's the real obstacle, the deed restrictions, in your mind.
I would say that's the biggest one.
Okay. Any more information?
Isn't that enough?
Almost.
oh, well,
Rita's in?
yeah, I guess.
Thanks for coming in, sorry we
Change your
didn't
mind, you know
have
where we
everyone
are.
here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, we have Town Clerk Amy Bakey.
Hi. Hello. I just wanted to tell you a couple things. First of all, we did get one payment on one of the properties that is up for deeding, and we got a email from the other property from an attorney that said that a check is on its way. So keep our fingers crossed that both of those are going to be paid. Second thing, my deputy is out with pneumonia. She has been tested. She does not have COVID, which is a great segue into, this is Caitlin. And I would like to hire Caitlin we talked about it before, reduce some of Gail's hours, and then bring someone on to start learning the job. And I wanted to just, I think you all have a copy of her resume. I just wanted you to meet her, and if you have any questions for her or I.
Tell us why you want to beat your head against the wall down in that town clerk's office.
It seems very interesting down there.
No question about that.
Caitlin did volunteer to work at the polls, so she has.
I remember meeting her there,
Yeah.
yep.
As the liaison, do you have,
I think we should follow through with the town clerk's recommendation.
And I assume there's plenty in the budget to cover all that?
Of course.
Foolish question of me to ask. Rich? No?
No comments. Do you wanna make that a motion, or?
I move that we hire Caitlin,
Milholm.
Milholm, I'm sorry, my apologies, to come in, as a staff member of the town clerk's office.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I'm okay with it. I'm sorry, were you asking me?
Betting he's there.
Dramatic pause for Zoom effect there. Okay, roll call vote.
Alessio.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Coombs.
Yes.
St. James.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tim.
Can't you do them all that quick?
Yeah, really.
Trying now.
True foretime.
Now is the portion of the evening where our first public comment takes place. Any on Zoom?
Nope, it's just Kevin.
Just Kevin. Okay. So that brings us to old business. With the permission of the board, I would like to go out of order from the agenda and skip to the second item, item B, agreement with Geoinsight. I asked Glenn and Rich to join us just so we can discuss the MS4 permit, which is essentially going to be a $40,000 bill to the town to remain in compliance with this, also known as the EPA surcharge. But right now the town has to pay this out of pocket, and we need to basically come up with ideas that make this self-funding or funded through new applications. So gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind joining us up here. Well, I guess first, is it okay if we go out of order?
Sure.
Is there any objection to that? So for background on this, we had a presentation from Geoinsight last week. They had run us through what they're proposing for the plan for us to follow to be in compliance with the MS4 regulations. For the viewer at home, there's basically been waivers on this since it passed in 2003. For small towns like this, it was initially aimed at larger towns with public water systems. It has now trickled down to little old Kingston. And we are responsible for enforcing the stormwater regulations as set forth by the Environmental Protection Agency. And part of that is we have to present our plan for enforcement through public education, high flow monitoring, low flow monitoring, that kind of thing. So the company Geoinsight has prepared that for us and given us a proposal, but in conjunction with that, what I would like to do is discuss how, and more of just a brainstorming session as to how this would be funded. It's something they offered to charge us to come up with a way to charge other people, but I figured we would use the resources that we have present to come up with some ideas. So, gentlemen,
So the $40,000 right now is because we're a little bit behind. We're almost a year behind. And to get caught up in the 5-year process, we're actually in year 3. We started year 3, July 1st of a 5-year process to get us to certain goals. We didn't budget enough money. And, you know, I've been warning folks that this day was coming. That $40,000 is just to get us in compliance with all the steps we need to take and walk us through the system. Where you need help is and there has been no waivers for Kingston since 2003. We've been actively working through this. It started in 2003, went through all the classes. With Geoinsight and myself, we wrote the stormwater ordinance. Quite honestly, it took me a couple of years to get it through the planning board, to get the planning board to buy into it, that we needed to do this. There was a lot of arm twisting, and I'm very happy when it finally got passed. Since then, the planning board has done a good job with all pre-construction portions, or the engineers come in with their site plans, whether it be residential development with subdivisions or commercial development with site plans. Made sure that the stormwater aspect was looked at by our town engineers. We've had, 4 or 5 of them since then. And that what was proposed through the planning board process was reviewed, and it was actually built before occupancy was granted to, whether it be residential, roads and neighborhoods, or actual site development for commercial. So that's really been taken care of. Where we're missing the boat is post-construction inspection, monitoring, and maintenance. We've never, as a town, addressed that. It's something we've supposed to been doing since 2003. We have a lot of catching up to do. We don't have any money to pay engineers, and that's my opinion, that's who you want to have go out, grab the site plans, make sure that things that were designed in 2006 are still there, not been, filled in and bulldozed over or not maintained. There's some record keeping correspondence back and forth, because if John Q. Big Business moves into town 10 years ago, he had a site plan. He's supposed to let us know once a year that, I hired XYZ catch basin cleaner to come in and clean and inspect my catch basins and maybe some water testing, but that's on him. And we need to make sure that's getting done. If it's not, then there needs to be a fine for that, and maybe some corrective measures. Maybe fine's the wrong word, but to make sure that they're in compliance, because we are responsible for every piece of land in the town of Kingston. Make sure that they're, doing the right thing with their stormwater. Doesn't matter if it's Glenn Koppelman's putting way too much fertilizer on his front lawn. If he's doing that, it's running down off his field and into the Exeter River, and it happens to run through Kingston's stormwater system, ditches or swales, even on the state roads, it's our responsibility to do the corrective actions to make sure that he understands the proper BMP's best management practices, so that he's not polluting the Exeter River. That's what the law is now. That's what we're responsible for. Like it or lump it, I don't really care. I didn't write, it's the EPA. It's big government, and that's where we are right now. So, in my opinion, it's the post-construction is our biggest area that we're falling down. Inspection, making sure things are done right, and obviously punitive damages if they don't.
Can I ask if can you hear me okay?
Not really.
Come on. Really?
Yeah. I'm deafer than a haddock.
Can I ask if that 40,000, whatever the number was that Geoinsight quoted for an annual fee, did that include all the stuff that Rich is talking about, all the post-development monitoring, the record keeping, and all of that? What did that number include? I'm just curious.
What needed to be done, right?
To get us through year 3 of the permit process. There are steps that have to be taken. There's actually more mapping that needs to happen, site as far as the whole town stormwater system. Some,
Yeah, but weren't there specific areas where the tests had to be done? It wasn't in every piece of property in town, is that?
right, we've identified like somewhere around 75 outfalls that we have to monitor that are actually in the MS4 area. So those were in the process. We actually went out first, did the first inspections a few weeks ago. There's some record changing. We got to change the plan because we disagree. Some of those are good outfall sites. Some were missed, so some need to come off the list, some need to go on. There'll be testing whenever we have a high flow event, rain. We're gonna have to go and actually test the water, and that'll tell us if we have pollution running downstream into the outfalls.
In the, I think it was like 44,000. They would do that for us, for that money?
They're working with us to get us up to speed in where we need to be.
We need to get you a copy, obviously, of what they
Here.
said.
There's a couple here.
I'm aware of the, before, actually Glenn and I both had an opportunity to review the document that they did, that they prepared back in 2016, that 130-page framework, which has a number of items in it listing the different things that
Each department has to do.
exactly, and who's responsible for what.
That was updated through 2019 though. The date of the one that's on the highway department website is 2019.
Okay.
And it's 300 pages long, and of the 8 or so that had direct planning board activities, there are a lot of responsibilities still yet to be done, and things that we should have been working on in year 1, and now it's year 3 and they haven't been done yet.
And part of that proposal is actually to work with the planning board, you know, because we're not inventing the wheel.
Right, right.
A lot of
We're
it's.
just inventing it for Kingston.
Right, and they're, I believe, proposing to work with the planning board to get those things, like they did with the stormwater, the 28-page stormwater ordinance that we have.
Right, right.
They're the ones that actually helped me get through that hurdle in 2005 or 6.
Well, I guess I got several questions, but as part of the bond, can you figure out like a yearly fee, like take a neighborhood, for example, and say it's gonna cost $500 a year to inspect that? Can you cover that in the bond for 10 years?
If the regulations are written that way, yes.
Okay. Because I think that's the only way you can do it, because I know a number of the builders go out of business, you know, so quick after doing these neighbors. I think the one that did mine is gone now. You know, so you couldn't go back, you know, and say, hey, you haven't maintained this, now you have to catch up.
I'm not sure if it's been done in a town like Kingston with an open drainage system as opposed to a closed system that you see in bigger cities like Portsmouth or Exeter, where they have stormwater drain systems. But state law about 8 years ago allowed communities to establish stormwater utilities. And it's a system that we could utilize, which then it assesses a tax, a user fee, if you're in the stormwater utility district for stormwater utility purposes.
Because that would also affect the new hot top that we've talked about.
Yeah, that allows the town to have a functioning group that looks at this over all the parcels within whatever the district boundaries become for Kingston.
Right.
And it's done in a uniform way with an assessment to the property, whoever it is, whoever owns it. And when you buy it, you realize that you're actually in a stormwater management district. So that there is an assessment.
And it would be an annual thing.
Yeah, it would be monies that were generated annually.
It goes with the property owner, so therefore you're not having to chase builder that might be
That
here
might
and
disappear.
gone.
Well, but what do you do in a neighborhood?
So, in a neighborhood, most of the stormwater is actually town-owned. Once the developer's done developing, he turns the.
But I thought you were worried about the maintenance of that,
But that,
It's for the site plan.
covered by taxes.
for roadways, because the town owns them.
So really what you're worried about is the private development, like if somebody was to go to Sears Logistic and put a.
Just for example. Just for example. What an odd coincidence.
Or, I think we had a proposal 3 or 4 years ago where they wanted to use some new pavement. And part of our fear of that was that they would never maintain it, because if it's not maintained, it doesn't work. So you would have to set up some kind of guideline, but you think you can do that under the bonding process?
We definitely have the ability. First off, I don't think the planning board, and certainly I don't have the expertise to establish what a bond would be for the next 15 years for maintenance of the stormwater devices on the site. I would imagine that Dennis would have a much better feel for that. It is something that we could establish at the approval process once we understood it better.
Right.
But the stormwater management activities that we aren't doing a very good job with are the post-development ones.
Right.
So although I think we have the ability to do it at the planning board decision side, I think that we should still move forward as a town and determine a way to do this activity separate from the planning board. Because it really is activity separate from the planning board for many years.
Well, we probably need to cover it both ways. We need to cover it so long under their development.
Yeah, for ensuring that, the way that we do it now, ensuring that they're actually installing stormwater management devices properly, the way that they show on the site plans. When we have extensive stormwater infrastructure associated with the site plan, we have a bond in place for doing that, for making sure that it gets constructed and for making sure that it works. But our purview of how long it works is very short.
No, I realize that. I realize that we need help with that. But
And EPA isn't looking at it
can we cover
as
the
short
cost
term.
at that meeting? So they know going in, they're gonna have that future cost. with
Right.
this development.
It's a forever cost.
Right. It is.
Right.
It's a forever cost.
And I think from an enforcement standpoint, everybody who's been before the planning board and signed on the dotted line, you know, that's in perpetuity. They're supposed to be maintaining everything on that site plan.
They are. It is their responsibility.
Everybody who falls into that category, I'm not concerned about, because it will take a couple years to get them into compliance and do that, but I guess my larger concern is moving forward, how do we make sure that we're just not reaching in our pocket to pay this? Or, I mean, granted, the town is lucky because we're sitting on a giant pile of sand and water doesn't hang around here. And we're in an aquifer everywhere you look, but
Still need a process.
It's still an issue because it still continues to rain.
It
Right.
doesn't. Not this year, but.
Oh, yeah, that's a scary thought,
So
but
I-
yes.
I've got a question about impact fees, because I was cut out of, or the highway department was cut out of any portion of impact fees. Could that be, stormwater be a portion of it? Because when you develop, put in a housing development, like one we just looked at last week for 128 units, there's gonna be a fairly high dollar impact fee for something like that. I think it's what, like $2,800 a lot?
That's what I've recently been told, yes.
About what
Or
we charge.
reminded.
Does that sound right?
Yes, that's what I was reminded of recently.
Most of that goes to the school, some of it goes to the fire department, and some of it goes to the library. Could some of that money be funneled to an account to help pay for post-construction stormwater management? I don't know. I don't know that much about the impact fees, because I was.
I'm not an impact fee advocate, as I've said for 20 years here in town, but I believe that there is an ability to assess against the expenses that would be created by at least the hard infrastructure associated with stormwater management.
Now, there's a 5-year window on that, those
6.
funds being 6?
6.
Okay. I guess, and I thought of that as a viable solution, but at some point, there is not gonna be new development in town, and this will continue to be a requirement. So, I see that as a short-term solution.
I would love, I mean, Glenn and I only talked about this for the first time this weekend. I would love to be given the opportunity to research if there are any communities out there like Kingston that have open stormwater management facilities that have adopted a stormwater management utility. I don't know of any.
My response to that would be have at it. Go for it.
I mean, I don't really know of any, but I think that Greenland, the town of Greenland looked into it a few years ago. So they would be the first people that I talked to.
And now's the time to do that, because if we have to enact some legislation or change our RSA's.
Right, if we have to do something on a townwide,
Soon.
we need to know about it this fall.
Right.
Right, but the part of it that might rely on us modifying regulations, that can happen anytime.
That can.
So under site plan.
In our stormwater.
Under site plan and subdivision.
Is that,
plans.
it's a regulation.
The regulation.
But what we're talking about might involve doing different things. I mean, there might be some modification to site plan stuff and subdivision. There might be something related to the impact fee ordinance, which is an ordinance, which means.
Right,
warrant
and we
article.
don't talk about stormwater management at all in our impact fee ordinance.
Right, right. And, you know, if we start talking about an assessment on a per property basis, I mean, that's kind of another component, so.
Yeah,
you know,
because we'd have to get the assessing
We need to
folks
start.
involved.
Right, right. So it's not a simple thing, but then again, I don't think anybody figured that it was.
I didn't figure this was gonna age like a fine wine. I figured we should get going on it, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing we talked about was the possibility of, Glenn and I, when we talked, was, you know, in addition to doing some research and doing a little bit more background work, is maybe putting a small group together, consisting of maybe Glenn, maybe myself, I don't know, someone from the select board, someone from highway, maybe Dennis, and, you know, trying to, once we've got a little bit more information, come up with some things to bring back to the board.
That's a great idea.
Ways to deal with the process, ways to deal with funding it.
Yeah, ways other towns are doing it, and
Yep.
what seems to be working and what seems not to be working.
Because it sure would be nice, again, you know, not to have to reinvent the wheel on this thing. And as Glenn said, we can't be the only small rural town that's having to deal with this. And I know other towns are further along than we are, so if we can find one that's like us, that has done a decent job putting something together, maybe we can look at that as a model.
And I think a multi-pronged approach, I mean, if it's some combination of impact fees, you know.
Legitimate
fines,
bonding.
And, because it's not just Geoinsight's portion of it, so I shouldn't be putting it directly on them. There is, you know, highway time that is gonna be involved, going out and observing high flow times and low flow time, and just all these things that are gonna, they're additional work that's gonna be put on our resources, additional strains, enforcement, you know, all those things are gonna be, they're gonna be cost to the town that we need to capture some way. And does it need to be 100% right off the bat? No, but we need to, if we're paying all this money for the plan, we need to be following the plan.
Right.
So, what's the board's thought on
I think it's a great idea to
Research it.
group together and come up with some ideas, do some brainstorming,
Yeah.
compared to some other towns. I mean, we've talked about this for years and never have taken the first step, and it's time to take it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not gonna go away.
Right.
not gonna go away.
It's gonna get worse quick.
I mean, and Rich has been saying it's gonna go away for 20 years. That's why I've just let it go.
I heard him say that too.
Oh, you were listening.
So, would you be interested in being the selectmen's liaison for that?
I would love to.
Good, good.
Probably makes most sense since I've been in on a lot of conversations in the past.
And you're the planning board's rep from the select board, so it's
And we
appropriate.
may end up having meetings like a little before the planning board
Right,
meeting or something,
right.
so.
Yeah.
Before they leave, can we talk about food trucks for a minute?
Should we not?
That's on my liaison thing. Pretty sure.
Oh, we have the resources here.
Just
Going back incognito.
stay where you are. I just want you to correct me if I say any of this wrong, but it was kind of the decision that the food truck that wants to go in on 125 has to get a denial based on the fact that other trucks have gotten a denial and that there's nothing written policy-wise in the town to deal with food trucks. Now, what the recommendation is that we write something for food trucks and put it on the ballot. Agree? Say that okay?
Or you could say to
They
another,
think it should be a planning board issue, I mean, a selectmen's issue, and I think it should be a planning board issue.
or
Either
you,
way affects me, but.
Okay,
or you could say that in order for it to be approved, at the current state of our existence, other food trucks have been required to follow a site plan review process, and that's where the planning board came down on it. And that was from a consistency and a precedent position.
And in this case, for the BFW to do it, they would have to have a full site plan review, which gets into thousands of dollars to have a food truck there, which I'm sure they wouldn't want to do.
so the fact that they were using an existing kitchen in a basically a commercial kitchen, didn't have any mitigating impact on that truck?
Well, not really, because what happens is that when you have an existing business functioning inside of a building, it has parking, it has activities, it has whatever's going on, and then you add, even if it's using something that's inside the building, you're adding a component to the outside that's going to have additional things like signage, it's going to have increased traffic flow,
Possible lighting.
How do you manage traffic? How do you manage crowds?
Parking.
And it's all outside. I mean, granted, they might be doing some prep inside in the kitchen and supporting the food truck outside, but you're really doing an expansion of what's going on the property.
Things aren't so simple anymore.
So, how this board left it was, they had permission to operate, but plan on hearing from the planning board. Is that a fair summation of what we said?
The what?
That we gave them permission to go forth and operate the food truck, but plan on hearing from the planning board.
That they had to have approval of the planning board.
I don't recall us telling, we said that they would hear from the planning board, but we did give them permission to operate.
Do you know what meeting you were at?
You did, I believe that you asked
When,
Susan to craft a letter, right? Based on what you guys decided at a meeting a month or two ago.
well, the first meeting they were here, we said we would take it to planning board.
It was all
When
put
they
on
were
hold till
here.
they went to see, till you talked
And
about
then
it.
something
I
happened
didn't
when I
know
was
if it went
gone.
on or not.
Yeah.
But I called the state because we were talking about the kitchen and that thing, and the state said that they require every food truck to have a registered kitchen. That it doesn't have to be commercial.
Yep.
That they prefer it to be commercial. But they have to show that the truck is going someplace to prepare food, to clean, to, do.
Well, that's part of their health and safety
Right,
responsibilities.
And that's why they were using the VFW, and then I guess Saddle Up volunteered to let them use theirs or something. I don't know what the deal was with that. I didn't understand what was said in the meeting about that, but
Saddle Up is always so helpful.
I I don't have the minutes right in front of me. I guess my recollection of it was that we, in the absence of rules for food trucks, and it was an existing business, the select board granted them permission to operate, with the caveat that they would have to go through the planning board.
I don't remember it that way, so we probably have to look back, because I thought we left it that we would talk to them after I talked to the planning board.
Right.
And I called them immediately after the planning board meeting, said they had to go to the planning board.
Okay.
And then what happened then was you guys had a meeting when I was gone, and I guess it got sent back to the planning board or something.
Well, at that point, that's when the decision of the board was what Phil was trying to verbalize, I think, was when you were,
Oh, okay.
when you were not
That
here.
may have
That
happened.
was on the
when I was gone.
31st, then. You wouldn't happen to have the minutes in there, do you, Susan?
I do.
So you could look to
From
see
the
what the
31st,
minutes
is that way? I know you talked about it twice. When they were here, you said you didn't see
Well,
any
the one
problem,
that-
but you were gonna consult.
But Rich wasn't here on the 31st. That's why I'm thinking it might be that night.
I think it was that meeting where
It was only
what
4
Phil
of
was
us,
talking about, that's when that transpired, I think.
which would have been.
It's all starting to meld into one after.
I know. Well, I remember because I wasn't watching it on Zoom, but I did watch the video on YouTube after the meeting, so. Just curious to see how it worked out, and I noticed that, Rich wasn't.
I mean, I said at the planning board meeting the other night that this is one of those times when I really would love to just say yes to them, but because we've said no to other food trucks in the past, that it's hard to say yes, and everybody kind of agreed with that the consistency
And, yeah,
was the big thing.
and at the discussion at the planning board, it really wasn't a split kind of
No,
a thing. It was consistent from member to member to member, so.
That they had to have a full site plan review of the property in order to do.
Based on how we treated similar situations in the past, and they cited several different examples of how.
And that would be different than if, let's say we had a festival, God knows that maybe next year we will have Kingston Days. Those food trucks don't have to do that site plan review.
A festival activity like on the plains is a different animal than this.
Okay.
That's an event.
Right, and it's over in 3 days.
Oh, so it's not.
This is an
That's right, you're right.
ongoing activity
Yeah.
at a specific location.
Thank you. Thank you.
On the 31st, you discussed it, and it was decided that the selectmen's position, that they have no objection to the food truck operating from the VFW kitchen and parking lot remains unchanged. But I think you left it there because you had told us that the planning board had reviewed it and believes it needs a site plan review. And then you said, well, we still don't object to it, and you moved on. I don't believe you contacted them because you were kind of.
I mentioned that we didn't finish something.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I look at it as, I can see why the VFW is doing it, because they're trying to drive traffic to a nonprofit. And, I mean, I understand where the planning board's coming from. I guess my rationale on it was in the absence of rules regarding food trucks, them coming to us while it was getting sorted out, but.
I think it's one of those situations we would have liked to help a small business have a weekend event, opportunity to make some money on a needed service that other people would have enjoyed as well. And it's kind of sad that we can't do that, simply do that.
Well, I suppose you could just do that and.
We could, and then so if something goes wrong.
The other way of looking at this, it's already the end of September, and most food trucks stop for the fall. So we could write something, get it on the ballot, and have it ready for next year. So that solves a lot of issues. And I have no problems with, especially after talking to the person that did the state, with putting something together, and we can run it by and then take it to planning board and kind of do a joint thing on it. Because the person at the state was very good about things that it should say and shouldn't say, just from errors they've made.
Yeah.
A food truck went in a neighboring town last year and just basically anchored and became a building with no wheels, calling itself a food truck. And they said you have to prevent stuff like that. say just leave it there all year when it's not occupied, and, you know.
I mean, to my recollection, they were only planning on operating on the weekends
Right.
at that location.
At the time.
And what is it now?
Yeah, well, no, they were specific, that said, at this time, we're gonna operate.
I think that's how they,
Right, they
Into
were,
other-
yeah.
they implied that if they were successful, they would want to expand their hours.
So I guess my question is, can the select board grant them the authority to have a limited usage there until there's legislation of some sort crafted
But you
through
get
the
into
planning
the
board?
hawkers and peddlers, I mean, what is that?
I think we'd have to have a time like from now to October 31st and it'd be done, because you're in the winter in November. Be honest with you, if you wanted to give them a 6-week trial, they could try it out and see how it worked. But the only problem with that, we open ourselves up to liability if something goes wrong, like anything else. But by the same token, I don't know.
I mean, the VFW does a lot for this town, and I don't think it's unreasonable for us to do something back for them. In a limited
Totally
capacity that is, to my knowledge, different than every other food truck application that I've seen come before the planning board.
And for 6 weeks, why not, or 5 weeks, whatever it is between now and the 31st. I mean,
They can't even get to the planning board at this point before November 17th.
Right.
We should anyways have regulations on food trucks anyways, because it's very popular, as you know, in other communities, and I see it becoming more so, not less so.
Well, I'll work to get something together on it, because I know Robin's already made a call to several other towns, and I'll get with her and see what she's done, and get something together, and then we can decide how to deal with it.
I promised her I'd do a plan link
Yeah.
request, and I haven't done that yet, so I'll do that in the next day or so.
One thing the state was very specific on was time frame, like allowing from May 1st to October 31st or something, to make sure that's in there, so don't, forget that.
So it doesn't become a permanent fixture on the property.
We have their contact information, correct?
Yeah,
Yes, I can reach out to them and see what their current timeline is as well, so that, I don't know how far into the winter they were planning on going to begin with, so why don't I get that information and we can go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so can we just kind of close the loop? I want to make sure we know what we're doing on the stormwater, the MS4. We talked about doing a little bit of research. Do you want us to do that first and then come back and at that point maybe put a group together to work on things? Do you want to?
I think you put the group together to work on that stuff.
I would, you know me, Glenn. It would be much better if we got a committee and said that committee was gonna meet for the first time on, I don't care, October 5th or something, because then I'll have something by October 5th. But if we don't do that, then I'm gonna do a half dozen other things in that
Can we
time.
do this? Can we make a motion to empower Glenn Greenwood and Glenn Koppelman and Richard Wilson to establish an MS4
Task force?
And
task
Richard,
force?
October 6th.
and Richard.
And possibly Dennis.
You really want him there?
Yeah.
We really do, unless he would prefer to have Brian be there, it's completely up to Richard.
Well, I think Brian should be included in it.
Or unless you'd rather just not be involved, Rich.
No,
Okay.
So I've got 20 years worth of skin in this game. I'd
Yeah,
like to see it
exactly.
at least.
Yeah.
I commend you guys for at least taking it serious all of a sudden.
So you want to do October 6th at like 6 o'clock?
Is that before our October planning
Well,
board
we
meeting?
start at 6:30. Half hour isn't going to be
For the first one?
for the first one.
Well, then you guys pick it. I'll do whatever.
Well, let's let Glenn check his calendar.
Well, I would love to, except it appears my phone is dead. It's useless.
Make it 5:30.
I'm just keeping it warm in my pocket.
I mean, if you think a half hour is enough to get us started, and on the road to doing it, that's fine. We can start there.
Why don't we do that? Because what I can do is make sure that by that date I have a packet of stuff to give to everyone to look
October
at.
6th.
October 6th,
October 6th, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. We'll
Charge your phone too.
Do you need a copy of the material that we received last week at our meeting from?
That would be helpful. I mean, I think it's this, right?
There's that, there's also a whole PowerPoint, if you wanna look at it, I'll send it to you.
If you could send it electronically to Glenn and myself,
Yeah,
that would be
the printout isn't that good.
That'd be terrific.
Yeah. And we obviously have access to that big document that's on the website.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's there.
okay.
Okay, so it's gonna be,
Should I send that to you, Glenn? Or to?
Both.
Both?
both would be great.
Glenn, Richard.
I'll send it to everybody.
Dennis.
Rich,
So that's a problem for me because I'll be Mass General that day, but you guys can get started.
So,
No, I don't wanna get started.
yeah,
What, does the day before work for you?
we should pick another day.
It's Tuesday, you guys all get together anyways, it's not that.
Well, all that's getting together is Glenn and I, and we get together all the time. I mean,
I don't care if we pick sometime during the day even, just so I
Well,
plenty of notice.
like a Monday when you're in the
for-
afternoon
I'm
when
willing to
you're
meet
here.
any day, I just can't meet on Wednesdays.
That's fine, so
But
Monday.
Monday, Glenn's already here
I'm
in
already
the
here on
planning
Monday.
board office.
So you wanna go the 5th?
Monday the 5th?
I'm wide open,
Let's do Monday the 5th.
Let's do that.
pick a time.
2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Well, no, 4.
2 o'clock.
No.
2 o'clock?
Rich, what's better for you from a work perspective?
2 o'clock's fine.
2? All right, let's.
And that's what it is. Sorry for
That'll-
taking up your time as we coordinate this, but
That'll
that's much better.
That'll give you, what, an hour or so to settle in here, get
Yeah,
something
yeah.
before we get into this?
Yeah, I'm here at noon, so that's fine. That's fine.
So it's Glenn, Rich, Brian,
And Dennis?
I'll touch base with Dennis.
Dennis.
R squared.
Yep, okay.
It's amazing, when Richard and I were cooking together, people would come up and I'd say, hi, I'm Richard Wilson, he'd say, I'm Richard Sims Hilaire, and I'd look at him and say, you two brothers? And I'd say, yeah, our mother had a sense of humor. Amazing how many people said, are you brothers?
so while we have everybody here to really close the loop, is there any disagreement with us signing the agreement with Geoinsight? Or do we wanna hold off until you guys meet?
I think based on what you've talked about here, you might want to be thinking about and talking this through before you sign something. I mean, if you sign it, you're committing to those dollars, right?
We're gonna.
That's why I'm asking.
I thought the dollars had to be spent.
They have to spend.
Yeah, it's
You
just a
either-
matter of coming up with a way to pay for
You're
it.
either gonna buy a Geoinsight or bring another company in here to do it, cause I know I'm not doing it, I don't.
Yeah, I absolutely
I don't
agree.
see anyone at this table capable
A lot
of
of
doing it.
I absolutely
Do
agree
we
with that.
want them to ask them to go to your meeting on the 5th?
Not the 5th, not when we're just getting
Okay.
started. I don't.
Not the first one. Maybe after that.
Did you see how much they charge for a meeting?
She's
Yeah,
expensive.
It's $600 a meeting. So I'm not into having them come to that first meeting at all.
I'm in the wrong business.
Yes, we are both in the wrong business.
No, yeah, we don't work for the federal government, is what it is.
So to answer your question,
We're gonna hold off on signing until you have that first meeting.
well, I don't know, that's not what I'm hearing, that's not what I'm hearing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. We have to sign it anyways.
You're almost halfway
I mean, I
through,
guess,
you get three.
Exactly.
I guess unless you wanted to solicit another proposal.
No.
And that other proposal wouldn't have the background of
Right.
having already worked on everything for
None
the
of the
town.
background. You'd have to start from square one.
Right.
It costs you 3 times as much. So
Yeah,
you,
which segues perfectly into our purchasing policy with regard to professional services. So if you were looking for a great window to run,
This is it.
Thank you and good night.
thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
G squared. You got R squared and G squared. That's pretty good.
We only talked a minute about A, purchasing plan.
Sure.
It's any permanent, just because of the question I brought up last time about the, whether or not we had to bid out the consultant and everything. And then in this plan, you'll see on the second page where she highlighted professional services that attorneys, engineers, planning consultants, architects, accountants, and other similar professionals are exempt. the other thing I had her add on the front page is the thing that we talked about, competitive bidding. All sealed bids shall be mailed direct to the planning board, or to the board of selectmen, I'm sorry, at our address. So instead of going to department heads, they will come in here to be open.
Should be open at our regular public meetings.
Open in public, oh yeah, I should say that. Open in public meeting.
Well,
It says, the next bullet says adequate public notice of a minimum 10 working days.
Is publicly spelled correctly? Is that shall be public?
publicly, yeah, that's spelled wrong, we can fix that.
Did that without spell check?
And it says at the time and place designated in the invitation for bid, so you can say where you're gonna open it, but
Yeah, that's true.
they have to, the change was that they're mailing them to the town hall, not to,
Yeah, the trustees do a separate meeting for opening competitive bids.
The other thing that I just noticed that in the first paragraph, it says competitive sealed bidding shall make all purchases of $25,000 or more contracts awarded to the lowest bidder.
It says responsible bidder.
Yeah, shouldn't be lowest.
Well, that's the point of it, isn't it?
Should be most qualified bidder or something.
Lowest responsible bidder.
Lowest responsible, that's fine. Oh, lowest, so you think that covers it? Okay.
If, based on that, the legal standard for that is pretty open. But you can solicit, so that they have to submit any references, and if you, in the course of checking those references, that would preclude someone.
Okay. So I guess that is in the folder to sign if we're all right with how it is, or if we need to add the
I think it's good.
public opening.
Yeah. I think it's good. We need a motion or anything in that?
Yeah, I think it's for the chairman to sign, right?
Yep.
it's for, I think you all, like, it's in this orange file, I think you all sign it.
Okay.
Well, then we want to add that sentence and sign it later, right?
You should.
That, if you sign that now, she'll attach it to this correct, she'll remove the highlighting, and that'll be your
Attach.
acceptance.
She'll just add the sentence.
There's no, we don't need to add a sentence in there.
It's the highlighted also, it shall be mailed directly, that's the
For
addition.
selectmen, right. The next bullet says adequate public notice will be given, so
Okay.
that's included in there already.
I don't see it in here.
You don't see, it's just a one sheet with signatures on it. The whole thing isn't in there, I can pull it up. Make sure I didn't take it.
The one that says this document will be placed in your personnel file,
That one.
that's the only one that has signatures.
Yeah, because that's the, she sends it out to all the, committees and, I don't know why it says personnel file.
It shouldn't be personnel file.
No.
I'll make sure we got the right one. Cindy's right here, I can ask her.
Move it on to next Monday night.
Yeah, why don't we sign that Monday night?
But
Can we just have the whole thing stapled together?
Yeah,
As much as I love signing a blank
we're just
thing.
gonna save a step, but I'm not sure that we'll bring it back.
All right, next up. Well, actually, where are we with Geoinsight on that? I think we should sign it.
With what?
I think what we set up tonight is how we proceed forward, but I think we're already, as Rich pointed out,
Yes.
halfway through year 3, so it's not like we're saddled with this forever.
Okay,
Yeah, you're
then
gonna-
I move that we authorize our chairman to sign on behalf of the board and the town.
Second.
So that's a Gen Flex.
You don't wanna reinvent the wheel.
Geoinsight.
If you do that, it's gonna cost you a fortune.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion?
Kevin's still awake.
He said be right back, he's not here at the moment.
I may have gone
Well, we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay, Alessio?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coombs?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we've got 4. Oh, here's Kevin. Do you want me to ask him?
Yeah.
Kevin, just had a motion and second to authorize the chairman to sign the Geoinsight agreement. Did you want to vote on that? You're mute.
Thumbs up.
I think he says yes, but.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we also received a RFP template from Block 5 from their, review of the town's technology infrastructure.
And lack thereof.
Yep.
And this is basically just to put it out for bid, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so part of their proposal was, or part of what they gave us was something that other firms could bid on.
Yep.
I think this definitely falls into the category of, we're starting from scratch, so we should definitely have this go out to competitive bid.
Yes.
You know, it certainly, they've given us a great place to start.
Make a motion, we do that.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Kevin, you got anything?
Say it again?
Block 5. We're gonna send the RFP that they prepared out to bid.
I'm in favor. I'm okay with it.
Okay. So the big question is, when do we wanna hear back on this?
The deadline.
What's your deadline for putting something in the budget?
Want me to ask
We
you?
have a while before, but they gotta have time to,
It's gotta take them a month.
at least,
I'd say 60 to 90 days.
at least 60 days from
Say November 31st or whatever the last day of November is. 30th.
And what's our deadline on budget? Or warrant article? Well, I guess this would be a warrant
Yes.
article, wouldn't it?
Be
Warrant.
selectmen's
That's
warrant
January.
article in January. We'd have to make a decision in December.
Okay, so November
30th
30th.
is the
And
last day.
who's gonna put it out to bid? Who's gonna take care of it?
We should-
Okay.
Do you have companies in mind, or should we?
Well, we could contact, they probably got a list of people who do the same type of thing.
Block 5.
Do we wanna rely on that?
Yeah, but we
Well,
just generally put it out.
I think Mark
We can put
Furlong would
notice.
probably be interested in bidding it, and if he can't or doesn't want to, he
Then,
can probably tell his people to bid it.
Well, regardless, we can place it on the website that it's,
In the
you know,
website, in the paper, and then
And
Yeah.
those
get bids that way.
Yeah.
I do think it would be worthwhile putting a couple of calls into some neighboring towns and see who they use
Okay.
for this kind of infrastructure, and send it to whoever they come up with. I think cast a wide net and see what
Yeah,
we get.
yeah.
Any further discussion? It was a motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Want me to do roll call?
Please.
Alessio?
Yeah.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coombs?
Yes.
St. James?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
All in favor.
Okay. Boy, there's just great segues all along the way here. New business, mosquito control contract. There's,
I wanted you to look at those documents, that you wanted to go out to bid this year as well. I put it for 3 years, I don't know if you wanna do that. And I did it kinda hastily in the spring because we were gonna try to quickly put it out, but it was too late. So I just wanna make sure it's the way you want it, and
has this been reviewed by the health
Officer
officer?
would be my comments, let him review it and put it out for bid.
health officer, okay.
He's the one who's gonna have to work directly with them, so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, And that had to be returned to us within 2 weeks, so that we can then.
This takes a little time to turn around, because that's what they have to apply to the state for a permit to do it first,
And
to
then
even bid it.
And then for the health officer to get it back to us in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Peter should.
So then we can then turn around and get it
Oh, for
out.
Peter to get it back?
Yes,
Or let him just go direct to Susan and then get it out?
okay. that's
Unless you
fine.
want to review it after.
No, I'm good with that. I just wanna be sure that we don't let it drop.
Do you not wanna review any changes they might make, though?
All right, give him 2 weeks and then we'll review it.
Well, I don't think it needs 2 weeks, do you?
I'll try to get a hold of them the next few days and,
Tomorrow.
Let's shoot for next Monday and barring any,
okay.
Okay,
Sounds like a winner.
yep.
all right, review of 2021 draft budget.
Cindy's here if you need her.
Cindy is present via Zoom.
And what she's giving you is, there's highlighted that are uncertain or don't know yet. Anything in bold has been changed already. I got that right, Cindy? She's muted too.
Yes.
Are we assuming NHMA is going up? They've been sending a lot of emails, and I'm assuming they're trying to justify their existence to us.
Retirement, social security, what do we have?
One question that she has is about the consulting and outside services, contracted services, to do with the PFAS. Have you decided whether to contract or to, how you're handling that? There were 2 different companies. And I think that consulting and outside was for Sanborn Head. But I'm not sure.
So our actual with them last year was only $853.
That was with Stantec, I think. With 100,000. Cindy,
Yeah.
the contracted services, and you have PFA's question mark, that's the one we think was Stantec, but this year they only spent the 853 because the work stopped at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So she said you need a
Would it-
contract.
Would it be better to encumber those funds for next year?
Well, you have to have a contract in order to encumber.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just, really, this is just a work in progress. It's these items that are highlighted are for you all to think about, to mull over before you actually pick a number and figure out what the plan is.
So Stantec fulfilled their contract. Have we at least verified that they sent everything they were supposed to send?
I think they did. I'd have to double check. I know that some things happened late, but I think they're all done for now, and then it kind of stopped because the thing was in court. Now it's gonna start back up, but DES has not asked us for anything since then.
I would budget that for next year as their policy. I guess the thing we need is an RFP from Sanborn Head on what we need to be putting out to contract moving forward.
Okay, sort of like Block 5 did ask them to set that up, what
Yes.
we're asking for? Okay.
You guys agree?
Yes.
That's what they're there for. Then obviously we're gonna have to review that because
It's a waste of money.
I didn't get that.
insurances, she just doesn't have the information on it yet.
Has Cindy seen anything from Unitil yet? I see this went up 36% on street lighting.
That was based on what was given to you in that agreement, yeah, for what the bills will be to cover.
So for example, like disability, health, all that is blank because we don't have the rates yet, is that?
I believe.
Right, they don't usually set their rates until October at Health Trust, and I've also got another broker quoting me on all of those insurances as well.
Thank you.
You did get the
Cindy, are we gonna look at offering different plans, like a high deductible plan?
I can find out about that if you're interested. I know that because we're in the under 100 group with Health Trust, we have limited options, but I can find out from our marketing rep.
Any other questions?
Not yet.
I guess the only one I have is, there's $12,000 in the health department water analysis. Is that what we were pulling from to do some of the PFAS testing, or is that just?
That's the testing of the residences that you were required to put, well, the state actually put the systems in for you.
That's all I got.
And I don't know if anyone's gotten to the street lighting yet, but I included that estimated $981 a month that we would have to pay Unitil back. Granted, they did express that we would receive, a lower cost throughout the year because of the new fixtures, but I'd rather budget so that we can pay Unitil, and then we'll see if we recognize a savings. That's the way I look at it.
Is there a way we can track that? Is that its own individual bill, the streetlights, or?
The street lights are grouped together on one invoice from Unitil.
So we would be able to do a dollar to dollar, year over year?
Not by light, not that I know of.
But if we're replacing them all, we know next year if we have all LEDs, we'll see our savings.
We can compare from year to year, sure. Yeah.
They would all be changed in one fell swoop, like they would come in and they'd be done in like 2 months.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that it would be all of them, so.
Correct.
We should start seeing a savings in the monthly bill, while we're paying them back. But for gross budgeting purposes, just in case we don't see the savings they're telling us we will, this way we'll have enough money in there to pay them back for the costs.
Okay. Anything else?
Not yet.
All right, thanks, Cindy.
You're welcome.
And then, MS 535.
Hi, they're on the MS 535.
Oh, you want me to stay for that just in case somebody has a question?
Do you have any questions for her before? It happens every year, it's the finalized numbers for 2019.
Right, the actual revenues and actual expenditures.
And I would kind of like to go through this week and see if I have any questions for next week. It's got a lot of information there. All looks good.
Still looks like that in the morning.
So, does anyone know what this water pollution grant from the state is?
Did you hear that?
No.
Water pollution grant from the state? Is that what it says?
I just wonder if that's something we should follow. This is totally off of this topic, but to see if there are any funding sources from the state for this MS4.
Well, when we went to Concord for the original, Bill Seaman, Rich and I went, and we tried to get funding, so they have a couple of, one is the gasoline, who was the?
MBTE.
MBTEs, yeah. So there's a ton of money in that. And then they came up with the grants that we had over on Marshall Road. Andrea Kenton, right? Remember that grant we had, right?
Oh, that we didn't get?
We didn't get. That was the same fund that we tried to get money out of.
Okay. All right, well, we'll look this over unless anybody else has any questions.
Not yet.
All set with Cindy then?
I believe so.
Okay, well, just so you know, just one of the pieces of the puzzle to get our tax rate set.
Yeah, Ms. 25, okay.
The 535, yeah. Yeah.
Too many MSs. That's 4, that's 5.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Cindy.
Okay, bye.
Committee liaison reports. Rich, I think we got yours.
Plan board it did. Book committee, I've got one thing I want to talk about. I'm going private. They are interested in any marketing ideas anybody has. We're having a meeting Wednesday night about marketing. I've said that we should get things on our website, announcing when the book will be ready, price, and maybe even a teaser of the first chapter or something, because I think that's what's gonna draw people in. But anybody has any ideas they wanna get to me for Wednesday night?
When is the book gonna be ready? Do they know yet?
Well, they're shooting for Christmas, but last meeting, the press people made it sound like it would not be ready till like the 1st of January or the end of December, so we may miss Christmas. But that's why I was thinking we could print some kind of card, giving people a card for Christmas that that's their book when they're available, you know, that type of thing. But if you have any marketing ideas, just give me a call and talk about it.
I've got one.
Huh?
I've got one.
Okay.
Don't sell us.
It's on.
No updates.
Electra.
I met with Rich St. Hilaire last Friday and with Brian and John actually to go over his budget. Was one I was not familiar with, and we did include the secretary's position in there. Maybe you have to pull it out, whatever, but they've had a part-time before. I know he's spending some money for help with Lori, but he's had a part-timer anyways. So we talked about part-time, it's for sure, for next year, and then go full-time, because it'll be half a year, whatever. But again, depending how it sorts out through the budgeting process, we definitely made arrangements in his budget for that secretarial position to be funded as it used to be within his department. Other than that, I did call Susan and ask her to draft a couple letters to thank people for their help, especially the group, the Highway Department, Tammy, Ellen, with the voting, because they did such a fabulous job, and we should send them a letter and to do
Yeah,
that.
Congress.
Other than that, I didn't have anything else. HDC met, one item got approved for the Main Street, and the other one is still a work in progress, the one right by the Josiah Bartlett House, changed the design on the shed they wanted to put up, and it got kind of messed up. But the one shed for Scotland Road went through quickly, because it was pretty well detailed and explained what they were doing. So that's it for me.
The inspectors on Thursday, 35 Marshall Road, the driveway is not corrected.
Hasn't been done.
They had a guy out there, some parts of it were fixed, it was not fixed though. Dennis and Rich and Graham went out there, and, so they are gonna attempt some more things and attempt to get it on the finished grade for the paving. So we'll see where that goes. I believe the 30th was the deadline on that, or that was when the
End of
temporary occupancy
September.
permit expired.
I think you're right, I'd have to check though.
So, watching. What's the other thing? I can't remember. All right, correspondence.
If I could jump in for liaison report for the fire department. I did meet with Chief Pellerin, and his budget, aside from salary line, was only up 1%. The only issue that he had, and I told him he should talk to Rich, is he's having some concerns about using Mahoney's for truck repairs. Seems they're getting a little bit pricey and a little picky. And I had a quick conversation with Brian Martin, he told me the same. So I told Graham we should talk with Rich, and maybe we can find a new truck maintenance place.
Did you check with Durham, can they do it?
So he says they work on buses, that he can do our trucks. So I was gonna talk to Rich and maybe start them off slowly, but they don't have like the lifts and stuff that Mahoney's would have to do a big job like the turbo that just went or whatever, so I'm a little hesitant going to.
Okay. Anything else, Kevin?
No, that was it.
Okay. Is that all fixed now? That turbo?
Yes.
All right, we have a correspondence. So we have a reappointment for Cindy Lewandowski to the Historical Museum Committee. So the reappointment. Thank you, Cindy Lewandowski, for your continued service to the town of Kingston. Can we hold off on this until next week? The MS 535 signatures, or is
I
this?
think so, yes, if you have questions or, yeah, it's only 1 week.
I agree with Rich, I'd like to look through it a little further. All right, this is a second request from the DRA regarding our PA 28 inventory of taxable property form for 2021.
It's a form we don't use. They ask every year if we use it or not. Just have to sign off and say we don't use it.
Okay. I need 2 other signatures here.
Go that way, because you got 2 right there.
We have 2 letters going around. Multiple letters. One thanking Debbie Powers for her service on the Heritage Commission. How many years was she on?
She's still on it, but 7. She's been on 7 as
7 years
chair.
as the chair. So we wanted to recognize her work there. Yep, and, I'm just gonna read this one out loud. Our state primary election, September 8th, 2020. Dear Tammy, Ellen, Rich, and crew, we would like to commend you on a very well-run election day. With the extra preparation and precautions due to COVID-19, you all had your hands full for weeks ahead of time, not to mention a very busy and long primary day. In spite of the need for mask, distancing, and other safety measures, an unprecedented number of voters turned out, many via absentee ballot. This could have caused long wait times, glitches in procedures, and a lot of unhappy residents. Instead, there were many expressions of appreciation on how smoothly the day went. In addition to the technical and legal aspects of the election, the maintenance crew is to be commended for the extra time put in to set up the gym, post notices, and keep on top of cleaning and trash removal throughout the day. Thank you for all of the hard work. We feel confident Kingston is ready to handle a very busy general election in November. So thank you to all who worked. You're not recognized enough for the efforts that you put in, and hopefully this is some form of recognition, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice lips.
You don't get it.
We get thanked if we don't get a raise.
Additionally, we have a dealer license and a transporter registration for AJA Auto and Nationwide Recovery Services. Is this because they're changing their address or
I'm
for the
not
new building
sure.
or?
Honestly, it's been to the planning board and then it comes to you for, signature.
Okay.
Usually that's, I think the dealer license has to be done every year.
And any objection to me signing these?
No.
Susan, if it's okay with you, I'll swing by tomorrow and sign all those as well, tomorrow morning.
Okay. They'll be in front of my desk, but I should be there when you come in.
Okay.
Do I need to read the cease and desist out loud, or just explain what it is, or just store it for signatures? So,
It's a talk about non-public before you do that.
okay. And that one needs to be reviewed. There.
Got the letter, email from the person at Bakey Farm, wants to do a pumpkin
Yep.
picking.
I'm just gonna read this one out loud for the board and the public. Good morning, my name is Jordan, and I wanted to introduce myself to the town. I'm the co-owner of Silver Lining Farm, along with my partner, John. This year, Bakey Farm is graciously hosting our pumpkin patch. We are offering pick-your-own pumpkins to the public throughout the month of October on a Thursday through Sunday schedule. I have read up on both New Hampshire State and CDC COVID-19 regulations and will be sure to follow and post all requirements. We will be offering the use of portable bathrooms, which will come with hand sanitizer. We'll also be sure to provide hand sanitizer in multiple locations around the area, as well as prepare sanitization buckets throughout for ready use to periodically wipe down surfaces. Signs will be posted to describe the requirement of masks and appropriate social distancing, as well as clearly marked spacing for guests to stand when in closer proximity. Aside from our normal pick-your-own hours, we'll be inviting a small group of local food vendors to share the day with us on Sunday, October 11th. All distancing and sanitization requirements will clearly be posted on this day for both Silver Lining Farm as well as those joining us. All vendors will possess appropriate licensing and liability. We do not see the number of guests exceeding 50 people at any given time, and we have provided a large outdoor space for them to maintain distance. We are hoping to create a safe environment for people in our community to share new memories and hopes to look forward to creating many years to come. Please let us know if there's anything you need from us to ensure we are providing everything to the town and our guests to host this event safely. So, is there any concern that this requires any review by police, fire, or anything like that? Okay.
Sounds like a great event.
And we had a complaint regarding firewood cutting in the single-family agricultural district. In this instance, the person is staying within normal business hours of 10 to 5, and it is in the agricultural district, which provides for farming, forestry, and fishing. So this does not warrant any action from the select board, unless anybody felt otherwise. Minutes.
I move that we approve them as printed.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and second. Roll call vote.
Actually, are we talking minutes?
Yes.
One correction. If you could make a note in the minutes that I left the meeting at 9 o'clock, and because of that, I did not make a motion to adjourn at 9:30 or 9:45.
Motion to adjourn? Yeah, I wrote in a note. I did notice that. I'll fix it. And if you're showing up in a motion after that, I'll take it out.
So I moved that we adopt the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Roll call
Alessio.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Coombs.
vote. Yes.
St. James.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes. Okay. Did we hear back regarding purchase of town property from council?
I talked to Sumner today, and actually, he said if you follow that RSA, and NHMA also said, if you follow that RSA 41:14 to the letter, which is basically to run it by planning, conservation, hold 2 public hearings, you'd be doing everything you have to. Sumner did question whether, you'd have to have a provision for other people wanting the same piece. And he wanted to know how you were going to price it. So I know you mentioned maybe having the assessors look at it again, if you want to do that. I don't know how it works if someone else says, hey, I want to buy that. If someone comes to us and asks, is it theirs? Or I think that's still the question that I have, and he seemed to be asking that question as well. He said that's the interesting part.
Okay.
So I think we have to do a little more research, but basically the RSA spells out pretty clearly what you need to do. I was just thinking ahead to other things that might come up.
How do other towns do it? I guess that would be my first
Yeah.
question.
This year,
Find out.
in Great Park, we want to try to give that to abutters to make the lots better. But in other parts of town, we may want to put that out for open bid. And I don't know how you can do different things in different parts of the town, if you can.
Well, it depends on whether we're gonna take a proactive or a reactive role.
Right.
We have Mr. Costello who's interested in buying those 3 parcels. We have to have a mechanism by which to establish a value for those 3, and then run that through conservation and planning, post it with our regular meetings so that there's 2 more hearings, either just before the meeting, and then, and such price. If there's no objection, we move forward. That's a reactive process. But proactive, I think you're right, Rich, when you say, do we put it out to bid? If we decide we want to sell a bunch of land and list the parcels, then how do we, that becomes more cumbersome. And I'm not sure
I would think that anything that doesn't conform to the existing zoning as a viable lot can only be sold to abutters with the intent that it cannot be developed.
Well, there was a warrant article years ago that they put in a Great Pond for that reason, that the only one that could buy it was an abutter, to make their undersized lots larger. That was
less non-conforming, I
less
think
non-conforming.
is the phrase.
But I think beyond that, you know, if it's a larger chunk or it's somewhere else in town, it could only, if it doesn't fall into the, if it's not a lot of it in and of itself, then it would just be available to abutters to.
Well, another one that comes to mind is the one Kevin brought up a few months ago down in the south part of town where the people have kind of taken over a town-owned parcel property. And if we want to sell that to them, do we have the right to do that, or do we have to put it out for bid?
The answer is now no, because we already get the approval from the town.
Because he's the abutter to the property, and it would make sense to give to him, but he already has a conforming lot.
Right, but it,
Just-
and
I
doesn't
mean,
block off somebody else or another lot. Was that one, there was another lot behind the town right away?
Yeah.
It would be blocked off, so that would.
And the right of way would be too small to do anything with for anybody else, so I don't know why anybody would buy it anyway, but.
Okay. I think the thing we wanna look out for though, if someone already has a conforming lot, say they have 300 feet of frontage, and then they get this other one, well, it's another
Well,
lot,
now
now
they
they
have
can,
400 split.
yeah.
Well, then I say we.
Can I cut in here a second?
Sure.
Did Rich, I could barely hear, but did you talk about that lot that I mentioned before on Pillsbury Pasture?
Yes. I wasn't gonna say the street, but yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we're gonna tell him to get off of it or buy it. He's frozen.
Leave him like that, he looks good.
I know, it's smiling.
Are you breathing? He's not moving.
You need us to call someone.
You better call 911.
He's
Just lost him.
Oh, he might be trying to get in.
He might be signing up.
See if he comes back.
It's never that quiet.
Now I'm connecting. What happened here? Maybe I unplugged.
Ugh, excuse me.
Technology grand.
When it works.
Ready for non-public.
Yeah, it's.
I don't wanna deny Kevin his voice.
I know, but I'm not even at the meeting anymore.
You're not at the meeting, or he isn't?
Well, it's now it's telling
She's
me to
lost her-
strike.
Well, regardless, we're not making decisions on that this evening. I just wanted to bring it up so we're
Yeah.
keeping an eye on it.
He says you froze on me.
Oh, you froze on us. We're all frozen.
Well, we might as well go non-public. 'cause
All right, well,
we're-
that will conclude the televised portion of this evening.